That's what's going to happen. We'll donate it if the real winner for the 18th board. Well, there was no bloom. There's no airfield left over there. It's all walk. Great board right here. In Palm Bay, you know, well, I got here my time. I got troops. You know those troops. They go into the hallway. Drop that 5-mile wide. I'm buying it for you. I got a bucket right here.
I know it's only 8:25, but we're gonna start at 8:30. Starting time. I think it's time we all met the sister of Staff Sergeant Joseph Eugene Prokop, and the niece Rhoda and her husband Chris. So I think at this time I'm going to introduce everybody. And don't stand up. You're fine right where you're at. For everybody that's here, there's Ann Spearmint, the sister. I'm not going to tell your age either, Ann. Don't worry about it. Sergeant Joseph Eugene Prokop. Can we have a round of applause? And now I want to introduce the niece and her husband, Chris. I'm not going to say where you live, but trust me, they've been in the eyes of the public. A lot of people know Chris. He played with old friends. So I want to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Delacave. And I also want to introduce, he'll be our guest speaker here today. He is the consular from New York, Mr. and Mrs. Christine Racine. with that introduction, I think it's time I'm gonna get my chaplain up here. He will lead us in invocation.
Uncover and bow your heads, please. We're here today to honor the memory of one who offered their service to our nation. We owe our freedom to men such as Joseph. Our country is safer because of him. We believe he is now in the hands of our Heavenly Father, where burdens are lifted and there's no more pain or sickness. We also realize how futile mere words are to express our sympathy to the family that he left behind. May we never fail to remember the awesome cost of our freedom, which we enjoy today. We ask our blessings on all that are here present, especially for those who are bereaved. May your grace be with them and us, now and forevermore. In your name we ask, amen. Cover.
We will now have our national anthem. It will be sung by Holy Cross High School Choir from Dunmore, PA. And we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Joe Sylvester. Okay, right now I would like to welcome each and every one of you for coming here today. And I really want to take this time to acknowledge some of the people that came here that are in the veterans' lives all of the time. When I give you some of these names, they're with us in full support. I want to thank Representative Thomas, I think it's Caffrey. He's from Governor Tom Wolf's office. I also want to thank United States Senator Bob Casey, who was here. I want to thank the PA Senator John Blake, and also Matt Cartwright. We want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank all the representatives, 112th District, Kyle Mullen, District 113, Marty Flynn. I also have to thank Tom Welby, who's been a big help to each and every veteran in this Lackawanna County. I want to thank the 114th District, Bridget Kozłowski. I probably butchered that name, but Kuchwara, they butchered all their life. I want to thank all the commissioners, Commissioner Jerry Notarianni, Debbie Dominic, and Chris Chermak. I also want to thank the Honorable Mayor from Scranton, Paige Cognetti. And I cannot forget and thank Dave Isley, Director of Lackawanna County Department of Veterans Affairs. Now it gives me a great pleasure to introduce each and every one of you and let you know he's here from the state. I want to thank the State Commander, Wayne D. Perry, for being here. I also want to thank the Chief of Staff, Cecil Dennis. And I also have to thank the 10th District Commander, Chester Petoskey. I know he's here. I also want to thank, he was past State Commander, past Eastern Conference Chairman, Russell Canaveri. I know Russell's here somewhere. Thank you, Russell. I also want to thank Mike McLean, Pennsylvania Department Inspector. I know Mike is here. I also want to thank Joel Sofranco. He is the Commandant of Northeastern Detachment Marine Corps League. Joel, good friend of mine, Joel. Always in on everything, Joel. And I also have to thank my good friend, who's head of the Scranton Veterans Memorial Park and Monument. He's here with his lovely wife, Mr. and Mrs. Pat A. Hearn. I know they're here somewhere. Okay. You people have been in the veterans' lives ever since we're involved with veterans. Without you people, we do not survive. At this time, I'm going to introduce the guest speaker. He's the consular from the German consulate office in New York, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce Christian Ressing.
Thank you, Jim. Dear Mrs. Spearmint, dear Rhoda, Chris, family of Joseph, members of parliament, senators, representatives, mayor, commanders, guests of honor, ladies and gentlemen, 75 years ago today, 3 U.S. airmen, Charles Bernard Goldstein, Warren George Hammond, and Joseph Eugene Prokop, were murdered by the Gestapo, the secret state police of the Nazi regime, in a courtyard in Hanau, Germany, on February 17, 1945. In memory and commemoration, we have gathered here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, at the gravesite of Joseph Eugene Prokop, simultaneous to a memorial service in Hanau. I am aware that the fact that I'm speaking here today is not something to be taken for granted. I feel deeply honored. On behalf of the German Consulate General in New York and Consul General David Gill, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you here today. On that dark day, on February 17, 1945, hatred and inhumanity showed their ugliest faces, as they did for too many horrific years in the name of the German Reich and the German people during the Nazi regime between 1933 and 1945. Only recently, by surprise, German historians in the city of Hanau discovered, while preparing an exhibition to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, that Joseph Eugene Prokop was one of the 3 soldiers executed by the Gestapo after they discovered that his crew member Charles Goldstein was Jewish. Dear Mrs. Spearmint, dear family of Joseph, you two have only just learned of his fate through this research. I can only try to imagine your pain. Nothing can rewrite the past. Words cannot heal the pain, and deeds cannot bring back what was lost. I bow before his grave and ask for forgiveness. With sorrow, I pay tribute to Joseph Eugene Prokop, to Charles Bernard Goldstein and Warren George Hammond. I pay tribute to the victims of all nations who died as victims of hatred, delusion, and destructive fury, which originated from my country. We Germans know about the suffering, we know about the pain. We know that many of you still wrestle with it today. The suffering is not something that only happened in the past. It continues to affect the families and descendants of the victims to this day. That is why it is so important for us to remember and engage in joint acts of remembrance and commemoration. One exemplary sign that we in Germany are facing up to our history and responsibility is occurring at this very moment by the magistrate of the city of Hanau, together with the state of Hesse and the US Consulate General Frankfurt. The three soldiers are being memorialized by the unveiling of a plaque at the place of their murder. I would like to thank the US Consulate General in Frankfurt and the Lackawanna County Department of Veteran Affairs, together with VFW Post 25, for their cooperation and their initiative for this event. In March, Dave Eisler will participate in the opening of the exhibition Life in War as a guest of honor of the city of Hanau on behalf of the surviving relatives of Joseph. We will welcome this initiative by Hanau and are grateful for all the ongoing efforts in many German cities to commemorate our past history. Germany recognizes its undivided and enduring historical and moral responsibility for both the Second World War and the Holocaust that resulted in the deaths of more than 70 million people. Whether they died in combat, were killed in unspeakable war crimes, or were inhumanly murdered in the concentration and death camps. This war was a German crime, and therefore we bear the responsibility that our history imposes upon us. A war ends when arms fall silent, but its impact is a legacy that lasts generations. This legacy is a painful one. We Germans accept it humbly and will continue to recognize it. It is our duty to defend remembrance and the responsibility it creates against any kind of denial and for active reconciliation. Therefore, on this day, I would like to express our gratitude to the United States of America. The American armed forces, together with their allies, liberated Europe, and they also liberated Germany. We would like to thank the veterans who put their lives on the line for the cause of liberation. We remain deeply indebted to America, which accompanied and supported the democratic rebirth of Germany and its way back into the community of states, despite the war and the Shoah. This United States of America opened the world's eyes to the irrepressible strengths of freedom and democracy, in particular for us Germans. And only because of the US, we were able to jointly lay the foundations of a united and peaceful Europe. Europe has always been important to the United States. You wanted a real partnership and friendship with mutual respect, you stretched out your hand to us in reconciliation for a new beginning. For that reason, former enemies have become good friends. Friends who now enjoy close political, cultural, economic, and military ties. The power of the United States' ideas and values, along with its foresight and generosity, paved the way for this relationship to a new and better future. That shows the living miracle of reconciliation. This reconciliation is a blessing, a precious gift that we Germans could not demand, but one we want to live up to. Therefore, it is so utterly important that we establish such symbols of joint remembrance and ensure the relevance of our credo: we must not forget and never again. Like we did just 3 weeks ago at the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, marking the 75th annual of the liberation of Auschwitz. For us Germans, our responsibility also means that never again may nationalism resurge. Those who want to remember the past and honor the memories of the victims must protect democracy, tolerance, and the rule of law anytime they are called into question. Especially in these very days when we observe that anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and racism are on the rise again in Germany and Europe, as well as in the United States and other countries around the world. I firmly believe that the vast majority of people in our countries stand for democracy, acceptance, and peacefulness, and that the vast majority of people in our countries are aware of the responsibility to contribute to those values in their everyday lives. So let us take it on. Let us fight against anti-Semitism, racial hatred, and nationalist zeal. Let us use arguments, not hatred, in our discussions. Let us live and act as good friends and transatlantic partners. My dear friends, let us uphold the spirit of reconciliation. Let us continue on the path paved by what unites us. Thank you very much.
At this time, I would like Mr. and Mrs. Christian Ressing to present the wreath to the, Mike, move over so they can put the wreath with it. At this time, would like the state commander assist me in presenting the wreath. This wreath is not only from VFW Post 25, from all the veterans organizations in Lackawanna County. At this time, I will ask David Isley head of Veterans Affairs of Lackawanna County, to come up and read a letter that he received from the mayor of Hanover.
It's my honor to read this letter on behalf of Lord Mayor Klaus Kaminsky. Speaking on behalf of the city of Hanover, we extend our greetings to Mrs. Ann Spearmint and family of Joseph, VFW Post 25, and the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I am grateful to be part of this event honoring the 3 U.S. airmen who died here in Hanover at the end of the Second World War. Together with our friends across the Atlantic who are hosting a ceremony in Scranton, Pennsylvania at the same time today. After decades of uncertainty about the fate of Charles Bernard Goldstein, Warren George Hammond, and Joseph Eugene Prokop, we now know they were mercilessly shot in this very town after surviving the downing of their aircraft. We want to use this opportunity to honor their memory and sacrifice, and hope that these events mark the beginning of a growing and amicable relationship between Scranton and Hanover. Thank you.
How we doing, Ann, so far? All right? You know, it seems like a long time ago we got that phone call at the post. And actually, I thought it was a call from Germany, not Germany. I'm sure you all read it in the paper. But after I got the call, you know, in this day and age, you get so many crank calls, and we had to follow